Next up, we're going to talk about logical OR. Logical OR is, I guess, a little bit like logical AND, only in the sense that we have a left and a right side that both will be evaluated, and both can be different comparisons that we would make. But the end result is very different. So if we were to try this query here, select star from books where author last name is Eggers and release year is greater than 2010, and we've already done this. I'm just going to slim it down so that we only do title and author L name, just so that we don't get that ugly formatting with my font size here. So we get those two books, right? This is all from the last video. Both sides had to be true. Last name had to be Eggers and release year had to be greater than 2010. But if I change that and to an or with everything else exactly the same, so I'll just keep a record of both of them, but I'll change this to be an or, we'll get a very different result. So this result here contains all of the books that have an author name of Eggers, so there's those three, or all of the books that have a release year greater than 2010. Now we're actually not printing out the release year, so that is kind of screwing us up. Let's put that in here as well, because you can't tell for sure what's actually happening. Let's try that now. Okay, now we can see all books by Eggers, but then also any book greater than or released after 2010. So we got 2016, 2014, 2017, and those are not written by Dave Eggers. So we're not satisfying this first comparison, but that's okay because we're using OR. The way that logical OR works is that if we have a left and a right, only one of them has to be true in order for the whole thing to be considered true. In other words, in this example, if I'm MySQL going through all the rows and I check to see, okay, is the author's last name Eggers on this row? If it is, great, then we'll include that row. If it's not, well, what about this? Was its release year greater than 2010? If that is true, then we'll also include the row. But again, if this was and instead, both must be true. So we can use OR in all sorts of ways. Let me just demonstrate first how it behaves in the sort of vacuum of a logical operator, a very simple statement like this. So if it's 1 less than 5, we know that that's true. We get 1. And if I do 1 less than 5 or 4 is equal to 5, well, we know that this is not true, but we still get 1 because only one side of the OR has to be true. If I change this to be an and, now we get false because both sides have to be true, but this side is not. But if I had two falsy sides with my OR, like is 1 less than 0, that is false, and the other side is false, the whole thing is false. So we still have to have one side be true. Here's a slide to summarize exactly what I just said. With and, both sides must be true, both conditions. With or, only one side must be true. And then, of course, we could use OR multiple times in the same way that we could have and multiple times, like this example here. And author last name is Eggers, and title like novel. I could do the same thing with OR. So why don't we do an example where I'm going on a very short flight, and I want to find the books that are short, or the books that are short story collections, because I don't want to start a long novel and then get off my flight and never finish it. But if it's a collection of short stories, I can read 1 or 2 stories and it's these small discrete units. Or if it's a short book, then I can just read the whole book. So we'll do something like select the title, the page count, and just do that for now, from books. And my first condition is going to be where pages, let's say, is less than 200. So that will give me all of the books that are short. We've already done this query, I'm pretty sure. Interpreter of Maladies, what we talk about when we talk about love, and Cannery Row. But I also want to do the short story collections, and those are the ones that include stories in their title. So I'll do an or title like, and then percent stories. And percent afterwards, go back to the wildcard or the like video if you're not sure what the percents are. But I want to see if stories is somewhere in the middle, the beginning, or the end of the title. And now we get all the short books, 198, Cannery Row 181, but also long books like Where I'm Calling From, Selected Stories, and Oblivion Stories, but they are stories. They include stories in their title, so they pass the test that we set up. Only one side had to be true. So for Oblivion, this book down here, Stories, the first part is not true. It was 329 pages. That's false. But this part was true, so the whole thing is considered true. And we get that book, that row included in our results. So that's how we can use or. One side or the other, they can both be true, or only one has to be true in order for the whole thing to be true.